y'all were kids at one point in your life, right? Falling off of bikes and swings, sliding in a second, doing the scorpion. The impacts during our childhood are probably too numerous to count. Wouldn't you agree? I think the thing that saves us most of the time as kids is that we're mostly made of cartilage, so we kind of bounce better when we fall, right? But you get injured as a kid, you kind of dust yourself off, maybe get a Band-Aid on the boo-boo, and then you're on with your day. But what if you're injured and it heals wrong and it grows wrong? Oftentimes the things that we're dealing with as adults started all the way back in childhood. In fact, one of the most common first causes of these spinal misalignments that we call subluxation is the birth process. And I know y'all were born because you're sitting here. But they did a study and they found that the average obstetrician is 170 pounds. The average baby is 7 pounds. In a normal delivery, the average pull on a baby's neck is 70 to 90 pounds of pressure. So the baby's being pulled, 70 to 90 pounds of pressure, turned 180 degrees to get the shoulder presenting properly, pull up to get one shoulder out, pull down to get the other shoulder out, and now you're born. Now, they might introduce you to your child, but then they take it, listen to its heart, listen to its breathing, count fingers and toes, check every system. Do they ever check the neck? They don't even think about it. But then you have babies that have colic, that cry for hours on end, for months. I had a baby brought in at 1 month old, and he was just all rigid and agitated with colic, and we found a problem in his neck, adjusted him, and you just see him go like this. Just relax. What's cool is baby hasn't accumulated things over a lifetime. Well, it has accumulated over a lifetime, but it's only been a matter of a month, right? So it's very easy to correct. Babies that have reflux and ear infections every month of their life, and then they get tubes in their ears when they're 1. That's not normal. So we love adjusting kids. We love adjusting babies because they respond very quickly. But the truth is, most of us don't get adjusted when we're babies, right, or kids. And so when we fall as adults, we don't bounce as well because we're not made of rubber anymore. We have all this repetition, especially in technology ages. We're constantly on our apparatus and devices, right? We bump our heads on things. We go out and do weekend warrior things after being still all week long. We have all these different things that accumulate so that when you wrap your car around a tree, it makes sense that you would damage the spine, right? But even low speed accidents can be dangerous. The research shows impacts as low as 4 miles an hour can cause damage to the ligaments of the spine. But what you generally get is delayed effects. What I mean by that is, y'all realize that when you have a problem, you won't feel any pain until you reach a pain threshold, right? And everybody's pain thresholds are different. So if you're injured in a low-speed impact, you'll be injured, but the damage is maybe below the pain threshold, so you don't feel anything, but it's weakened. Now when you go out into the yard and you're gardening or throwing mulch around and your back goes out and you come in to see me, and I ask if you've ever been in an auto accident. Yeah, a few months ago, but I wasn't injured. You were injured, you just didn't know it, okay? So you add in other things like toxins and stresses. I do an entire lecture on stress, but suffice it to say that these things cause you to blow fuses, all right? But the most dangerous thing to do is look for the one cause. Really, it's an accumulation of things over a lifetime that get you in the condition that you're in today. Does that make sense? Absolutely. So what is the condition that we're in? Well, I'm going to use a very drastic example. And one of the most drastic examples I know of is Christopher Reeves, right? He's the actor that played Superman, was in great condition. He was jumping horses. The horse stopped. He didn't, fell forward, hit his head, broke his neck. It was an upper cervical fracture called a hangman's fracture. Just by the name of that, you don't survive that, right? And so when we look at that, we're like, okay, so he wouldn't have survived that event if they didn't have EMS on hand at the event, because they had to put him on a respirator because he couldn't breathe on his own. They ended up putting in a pacemaker to get his heart beating on rhythm. They had to press on his bowels just to get his bowels moving. He was obviously paralyzed from the neck down. But did he have junk organs? No, he had what we might look at as a blackout, right? A power outage. And no messages were getting through from the brain to the body, or very few messages were getting through from the brain to the body. Now, the good news is none of y'all are in that condition, right? Y'all are more like this lamp. What do you think's wrong with this lamp? Anybody? There you go. call it a dim light bulb. Not that I'm calling they all dim light bulbs, right? But let's go with a dim light bulb. And let's say that the amount of light given off by this lamp is representative of your health level, right? It can be a little higher, it can be a little bit lower, but wherever you're at, you're at. And sometimes we just get so used to being where we're at that we almost think it's normal. Now, let's say this person comes into our office and has something simple like back pain, okay? And they come in, we find subluxation, we start adjusting the spine, and they start feeling better. So it's gotten brighter, right? And you come in someday and say, you know what, I feel so much better. We're gonna celebrate with you because we want you to feel better, all right? But my brain immediately says, but how much brighter can you be shining? So we're adjusting you over time, and you're getting brighter, and at some point you come in and go, you know what, I started running again. I'm gonna train for a 10K. Or I can get on the floor with my grandkids and get up without any problems. We're gonna really celebrate now because you're functioning better. So we want you to feel better and be better. But it's almost a sickness. My brain goes, but how much brighter can you be shining? And so over time, you're getting adjusted, you're shining brighter and brighter and brighter. You didn't know back when you were here that you could even get this bright, right? So my goal is for you to be as healthy as you possibly can be so you can function well. I have a patient who was 78 years old, got healthy enough to go on a mission trip down to Haiti to teach kids. So how many of y'all think that if you're shining bright like this, you can serve your family better, you can serve your community better, you can serve work better, you can serve God more effectively if you're shining bright, right? So each adjustment, like I said about bank account, right, the health account, each adjustment builds health. We never know how bright you can be shining. But once we build health, we don't ever want to start making a bunch of withdrawals and go back down, right? And so if you notice, the mission on our wall says to provide love, hope, and healing to your family through chiropractic. It doesn't say to get rid of your back pain as quickly as possible. I mean, we want to get rid of your back pain or whatever it is as quickly as possible, but we want you to be as healthy as you possibly can be, all right? But when we're talking about communication in the nervous system, too often it's like we're going through the drive-thru at McDonald's, right? Not that we should be. But you're going through the drive-thru at McDonald's and you're speaking into this little speaker and you're saying, can I get a quarter pounder with cheese and a large fries? And they say back to you, you think you're gonna get what you just ordered? No, if that message isn't getting through, you're not gonna get what you ordered. That's the way the body is. If the body's message isn't getting through, the body can't deliver what the brain just ordered, and vice versa. And so when we look at the nervous system, it's extremely complex. Just think about the messages that it takes to reach for a cup of coffee and bring it up to your mouth and take a sip without burning yourself, right? There's all this coordination that has to go on just to reach out to the right place. Grip it hard enough that you're not gonna drop it, or not too hard that you're gonna injure yourself or break it, and then to steadily bring it up to your lips and take a sip, and then put it back down. Now, this is the nervous system that we can consciously engage, right? But the vast majority of nerves we don't think about because it's the autonomic nervous system, or people want to call it the automatic nervous system, right? Because you don't think about it. But those are the nerves that go out to all the organs. They go to control your immune system. They control your hormones or endocrine system. You remember when I told you when I was a senior in high school, I came down with a condition that caused me to have a swollen testicle? Why do you think my dad looked at my back? Well, let's look at where the nerves come from here. They go out to the testicles. So when he adjusted that, it freed up those nerves and allowed the body to heal. Now, what if that problem hadn't been corrected? Maybe instead of starting to get adjusted as a teenager, I started getting adjusted when I was 35 or so. I might have been sterile, right? Good news, starting it that early. I'm not. So 3 beautiful daughters that I'm thankful for every single day. Now, one thing cool about them is that they were able to get adjusted before they even left the hospital after being born, right? So they were able to get started early, and they're vibrant and full of life. So what I'm talking about here is that condition called subluxation, right? The vertebra shifts, puts pressure on the nerve, causes obvious things like pain and tenderness, inflammation or swelling, tight muscles, even muscle spasms if it's bad enough, locked joints or reduced mobility, abnormal posture. That's one of those things that our patients really start noticing, like when you walk around HEB, you'll notice people walking around with a low right shoulder or forward head posture, or their hips are off, right? It's kind of like when you start looking for a new car and you start seeing that car everywhere, you didn't realize there were so many of them out there. Now that you're aware of posture, you're gonna see poor posture everywhere. Several years ago, I went to my daughter's high school graduation and saw like 600 or 700 kids walk past me on the way to the stage, like this, right? And this forward head posture at 17, 18 years old. What are they gonna look like when they're 50? It's scary, right? Dr. Chung Ha Soo, he's a PhD spinal expert at the University of Colorado, says that just the weight of a dime on a spinal nerve will reduce nerve transmission by as much as 60%. So that's, I don't think I want to be functioning at 40%, right? Even within medicine, the Journal of the American Medical Association says deviations in the body's center of gravity, that's poor posture, have resulted in intestinal problems, hemorrhoids, varicose veins, osteoporosis, hip and foot deformities, poor health, decreased quality of life, and a shortened lifespan. So even within medicine, they're understanding that structural problems can cause real health issues.